we got ourselves some anime industry related news from Chibi. MAPPA VP addresses the anime industry problems after 2020. I wonder what they're gonna say. Maybe they'll be talking about how, hey, the way that we treat our workers is wrong. The animation industry is exploited. By having workers work out of passion and being paid nothing, we have created an unsustainable environment where the top of the top profits while the bottom of the bottom who do actual work do not get anything. And we're going to address that issue. Surely they're going to talk about anything but that, right?
MAPPA Vice President addresses issues within the anime industry. As you can see, the article was written today, and it's directly sourced from Real Sound here, aka a Japanese news source completely written
credible.
in Japanese. So let's dive headfirst into this, because obviously this article is very important because, let's face the facts, Studio MAPPA has been the poster child for bad work ethics to animator overwork, you know, toxic workplace, sweatshop-like environment.
Like, I think MAPPA is the Amazon of the anime industry. When you think about black companies, when you think about corporations that go on to exploit their workers, giving them, you know, just the shittiest working environments, most people think about Studio MAPPA, right? It used to be Madhouse, right? It used to be Madhouse, and a bunch of people packed up their shit and left to create this new studio known as MAPPA, and it was good for a while until, I guess, it just got, I don't know, it just became mainstream, and then it started to repeat the same practices. It basically became the evil that they kind of left to vanquish. Kind of ironic.
Director and animators crashing out live on social media. We have all seen it, and I think that when this really became in the public eye and a lot of people started becoming more aware of this situation was definitely when Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 was airing.
Jujutsu Kaisen, that's right.
Around the series because of how much it blew up, and I think a lot more people became aware just how much work it is to actually be an animator, and how sometimes it's a very unthankful job. You're not thanked enough, and it's a job to where
I would say it's not even thumb time. It's just like most of the times, right? Because like, damn, these poor animators put in so much work, but it's so eye-opening how much they get paid. Like that Blue Lock animator Indifew guy, remember? That one with Martin when 8-Bit Studio stuff was happening with Season 2? Like the average monthly salary for Blue Lock animators was like $30-something USD, and that was like roughly under the market. Like it's so sad to see something that people work so hard. Like it's a labor of passion, but that's the thing. It's like the same thing in the video game industry too. I think the general notion is if you're going to tech back in the day, you're going to software development, nobody wants to do video game development because the common saying is you work twice as hard for half the pay because there's so many people who wants to make video games. So because of that, there is such a stronger leverage on the employer side to kind of like not give the employees what they want, because for every employee that's just going to stand up and leave, there's like 20 other dudes that's basically begging to just like work for minimum wage, you know, to fill the position.
It sometimes doesn't even feel worth it. The pay is very low, all those different type of things. Now, before I really start to read this article, there is something I need to say, because if I don't, there's people that get their underwear in a knot if I don't mention it, so I'm just going to mention it just to cover my bases here. But obviously, yes, I am talking a lot of negativity about Studio MAPPA, but it isn't just a Studio MAPPA problem. The entirety of the anime industry is pretty much rotten.
Yep, other than like KyoAni, and I don't know, Studio UFO Table is also pretty good. I think they're pretty rolling in the money and the dough, and they got good scheduling. I don't know, but like there's very few studios that treat their workers, you know, in an ethical way, I guess, which is so sad because that should be the base standard, but this is an industry problem.
Some select few individuals like KyoAni, for instance, that, you know, has kind of shifted away from the toxic work environment, but for the more or less, the entirety of the anime industry is pretty toxic, and it just has bad work ethic. You have animators overworking. This is an issue that just stems in the entire industry. It's not just a Studio MAPPA problem, it's just an anime industry problem. However, MAPPA obviously has done a lot of things that have brought them into the public eye with negative attention, and there is a reason why they're talked about so often, because they have done a lot of bad things. And so I'm not going to be someone that's going to sit back and not address this stuff just because it happens everywhere in the anime industry. It is important to talk about this to spread awareness and for more people to become aware of what actually is going on with some of their favorite things, for instance, anime, manga, etc. So now that that's said, let's get right into this.
Let's go.
Obviously, the vice president of Studio MAPPA addresses issues within the anime industry. And I am curious to see what he has to say, if he brings any nuance or any information that could obviously bring to the table things that could be corrected and to change the overall, industry for the better. Let's see what they have to say. So Real Sound released a recent interview with MAPPA Vice President and animation producer Hiroya Hasegawa, whose credits include all seasons of TV series like Vinland Saga, Oblivion Battery, and The Ancient Magus Bride. When asked about the anime production issues and what's necessary to overcome them, Hasegawa replied, "There are many issues to be addressed, not just at MAPPA, obviously addressing the entirety of the anime industry as a whole, but one is that, unlike when we first joined, the number of people who casually come in contact with animation has increased over the past few years, and when they get involved in anime production, they often find that the world is different from what they have imagined."
So, like, how is it different from they imagined? It's not just sunshine and rainbows where everyone has fun, living their dreams, being able to work and get paid to make anime that people enjoy. It's just like, listen, there's some really fucked up shit happening behind the scenes. Will they talk about it?
So this one is a very interesting comment. I feel like this more or less acknowledgement of the popularity of anime and manga since
it's getting bigger.
With the boon of anime and manga becoming a lot more mainstream. I think this is basically what is being said here, is that thanks to the overall demand of anime reaching new heights that's never been seen before, a lot more people are coming in contact with anime and animation and wanting to get involved with it. But when they do,
it is crazy how much things really spiked after 2020 for so many different things. This isn't just anime related, but so many other like online businesses, anything that basically deals with online, transactions. It went crazy. Everyone was shut down. Globally, lockdowns are happening. Everyone's inside. They don't know what to do. So people are just consuming, watching stuff. And, anime industry too definitely got a positive boost from that.
Do get involved with it, it's very different than what they expected, probably because of maybe it's not a rose garden, it's not sunshine and rainbows.
That's right, it's built on the back of animator slaves. Dudes who don't get to see their families for months. Now, this is probably an exaggeration, but yeah, it's really bad then there.
An animator requires you to have long, thankful work hours to where you might even pass at your desk with grueling deadlines and so many other issues behind the scenes. That's not even, talking about maybe your coworkers that could cause some friction. So this is more or less what I think this comment is saying, is that people have built up this expectation that being an animator might be a rose garden, but in reality, it's a very thorny path, very difficult, and not that good whatsoever. Anyways, continuing to read. However, it is no use actively appealing that the animation is hard work. Now, this right here, I think, is more or less confirming what I just said. Hasegawa continued, and I am thinking about how to fill this gap.
How?
In terms of working styles, I have the impression...
I wonder if they'll talk about AI. I wonder if they're going to start, like this is like an early, hedge into them being like, all right, we're going to start introducing new technology. Utilizing AI to offload the amount of work that needs to be done, because it's in corporations' best interest to get rid of their workers and try to utilize AI to basically spend less money but make more money.
That there are more people in the production field who want to separate their work and private lives and strike a balance between the two than before.
That should be the norm. Your life should not be your job. Especially if you are an employee. If you're a business owner, then yeah, your entire life is probably going to revolve around that one thing because you get rewarded proportionally to the amount of work that you put in. Most other people who are on a paycheck, they don't do that. So work-life balance should be just the standard, but they basically, in Japan specifically, right? It's such a work culture that's so predatory where if you try to clock out at 5 o'clock, people look at you weird because everyone else is still working and they kind of shame you. I mean, there's a fucking anime airing right now called Guild Receptionist, right? Where the entire premise is that she has to work overtime. The entire anime is a girl that's been brainwashed that simply clocking out at 5 p.m. is like a luxury. Imagine that.
I think it is important for a company to take a stance of not allowing individuals to work in a way that does not allow them to maintain this balance. Now, this statement is very interesting. More or less what is being said here in very simplified terms is that people now becoming an animator, they don't want to work, let's say, 20 hours a day, pass out at their desk, and then they wake up and they start working again. And
isn't that crazy, guys? Wow. Like, but that's the thing. They brainwash you into thinking that you are doing this for the mission, that this is a worthy cause, that you shouldn't have a life outside of work. You don't have a family. Your work environment is your family. While at the same time, these motherfuckers who says that we're family treat you like garbage.
And they work literally, they live at the office. They live just doing animation and drawing and all that, and that's all they do. They want to be able to actually have a personal life. They want to be able to go home, spend time with their kids, their wife, or whatever they want to do.
It's crazy to me that this is like an exception. Like the way that the article is saying and the way that Chibi is talking about it, obviously Chibi is not the one, you know, aligning with their values, but it's crazy to me that something so obvious and standard that happens for pretty much everyone else that's like employed is like an exception in Japan.
Do in their personal life, and they want to be able to have time for themselves, which is very fair. Nobody wants to work 18 plus hours or whatever and not have any time for themselves. It would.
And at the very least, if you're gonna work that much, at least like pay them proportionally to that. You know? Well, like I think in Japan, yeah, like do they even pay for overtime? I don't think they do, right? It's all just like volunteer for the spirit of the company. We are family. And everyone must band together and basically work hours that you're not even being paid. That's fucking crazy.
Drive you insane. It would grind you down to where you're basically nothing anymore. You'd become a husk of a person. It's just not good overall. However, this overall issue seems to be something relatively new. That is, a lot of these, animation studios are now starting to deal with, because in the past, it seemed more or less people were completely fine with just working to the point of basically passing out at your desk, but it seems like the newer generation and new people coming in to work on anime more or less want to have a balance between work and personal life, and obviously these studios,
and I see so many, even like TikToks, where it's not even anime industry too, but you know how like there's a common notion that Gen Z is lazy? That millennials and Gen Z is lazy compared to the older generation of a Gen X, boomers, and so on. How their different approach to work-life culture is. Like, are you surprised that like a bunch of old fucks who's basically, you know, already have a house, a retirement, a family, they basically already gotten what they wanted out of the job because the purchasing power of the money that they earned many decades ago has gotten them out of the rat race almost. While the newer generation coming in, they're fucked. They don't get paid enough to actually have meaningful ownership over their life. And then these soulless fucking corporations, they brand the younger generations for being lazy, and they're like, oh, they're so entitled. How dare they want to like have established boundaries and to set like a healthy work-life balance? Like back in the day, like just pull your boots up by the strap, just lock in and grind. It's such a toxic propaganda meant to brainwash people to make them not act in their best interest, but for the interest of the corporation.
Companies, they need to shift. If they don't shift, it's going to cause it to where not a lot of people want to work with them, which is why you have, Hasegawa even mentioning this, that a company needs to basically strike a balance. I feel like more or less what is being said here is if the common consensus or the public wasn't actively wanting a balance, the company would never even think about this. The company wouldn't even try to do this. They would be willing to allow the workers to basically sleep at the work for the rest of their days.
Because remember, at the end of the day, if you don't fight for your own rights, bro, they will roll you over. Corporations only exist to make them out as much as money as possible. They have no obligations or any sort of morals or ethics to treat you well. So you gotta fucking fight for your own values.
That's more or less what this looks like. Now, I could be reading too deep into this or whatever, and obviously this is
This also kind of sounds like that there's a lot of like so far, I mean, I always thought that no matter how much the Japanese animations, the industry, the workers, complained and basically maybe even walked away from their jobs, that there would be always so many backlog of people flooding in to, replace them. Therefore, nothing was going to change. But it almost sounds to me that like it's catching up to them. Like the talent pool is drying up. Many people are realizing there's no point to even get in the field of this game anymore because it's not worth it compared, like considering all the different shit that they've seen before. Therefore, now they're kind of like saying this shit because they're like, oh fuck, we're kind of running out of people to, get.
Is translated from this Japanese article, but that's the impression I get. More or less, it seems like, if they were allowed to overwork their employees, if the employees would allow themselves to be exploited, they would do so. Which, to be fair, if the employees would allow it, why wouldn't a company do it? Anyways.
Straight up, if you don't fight for yourself, bro, they have no care for you. They're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing until it breaks.
Let's keep on reading. Hasegawa also says MAPPA is considering a way of education that allows mentors to transfer their skills equally to multiple people.
Okay.
The lack of proper long-term mentorship at a workplace has long been cited as a major factor in suggested declines in animator abilities within the industry.
That makes sense, right? To have more capable animators. Hold up. That sounds good. Until I start to realize that, like, you know, these specific highly talented people who are so talented that they are basically just like, you know how the industry works, right? The studios doesn't really have in-house staff. There are some, but most of the things are, you know, what's it called? Contractors, right? They're like mercenaries. They're so skilled, they basically choose a talent in a project, and other skilled people will kind of follow suit. Not for really the money, but because that's like where the talent is, and it's kind of like a VIP club. Like they respect whoever's working on it. If they're like, hey, Kano's working on this, like I want to work with Kano. If Takeuchi's working on this, I want to work with that guy. For them to have their skills like that, I think creates like a greater value to them because they are so unique. They like not everyone can do what these specific really talented people can do. And if you were to have a structured system where you're forced to kind of like have this mentorship, which sounds good on paper, but basically teach everyone else how to do that way, doesn't that kind of create this like, doesn't this create like this framework where now you don't have to pay as much to get that high talent because now the baseline has increased? Do you know what I'm talking about? Let me try to give you an example a different way. And this is a very, very black-pilled negative perspective on this. At work, in corporate environments, there is like that one guy who's been working for a long time who has all the knowledge of, you know, the source code or the material. And the company realizes that this guy is overpaid. He's been around for a long time and all the important knowledge is in his head. And he is overvalued to them. So they hire new young talent and they pay them a fraction of what this OG veteran is making. And they force the OG veteran to spread the knowledge, to do a knowledge transfer. And I'm not saying that like mentoring is a bad thing, but do you see where I'm going with this? Where now they're like, all right, teach this kid everything that you know so that we can get rid of you and have these new kids who I'm paying way less to be able to do the job that you used to do. From the company's perspective, in order to save money on, you know, like talent like that does that not make sense? So like I'm thinking from this perspective, the knowledge transfer, the mentorship, while it sounds good in paper, there could be other insidious planning behind the scenes. But again, this is just a very, very negative perspective on this. This could be also very positive.
Short crunching schedules means there isn't time to pass on skills and compensate for these short schedules. Large numbers of freelancers are used, many of whom don't learn from implementing the corrections, aka retakes, advised by animation directors due to further scheduling conflicts.
And that said right there, there are definitely some positives to be taken away from there, right? If the mentorship is done well.
So this is a word salad, so let's rip this apart and let's explain what's going on here. So let's talk about the lack of proper long-term mentorship at the workplace has long been cited as a major factor in suggested declines in animator abilities. The reason why this is a thing is because there is an animator shortage. Not a lot of people might be aware of this, maybe you are, but there is an animator shortage, which is why there has been a rising demand for freelancers. I mean, hell, this article even mentions a large number of freelancers are used on projects now. A lot of people within Japan and these different companies don't really want to work with these companies because the hours are not good.
Yeah, like again, like why would you intentionally sign up, especially now that it's more widespread and it's more and more people are becoming aware? Like, why would you want to go into the animation industry in Japan like that?
They think that it's going to be a lot better than they realize, and when they get into it, they're just not appreciated. And you accompany this with like an aging population with Japan, there's a lot of issues that they have to tackle. But the point of the matter is that they can't keep people on their staff long enough to be able to mentor them, to be able to pass down skills and to learn certain techniques and stuff that normally would have done maybe 20 or so years ago. So because of that, you have a lack of long-term mentorship where people aren't learning and they move on to the next project, to the next project, and they don't have time to really analyze and better their overall self as an animator because obviously they're just continuously in the trenches working, and then they'll dive out and go to a completely different studio that has a completely different style and way things things are done, and it just continues to repeat. This is the
yeah, it's like a framework. It's like a constant loop of people. Like the culture does not foster that like fundamentals to be, I guess, really addressed for people to understand like how to be better. Thank you, Freshest Anime, for the raid. Appreciate it, guys. Hopefully you guys had a good stream. We're currently watching some anime industry related news from MAPPA talking about there is an exodus happening.
The reason why the freelancers were mentioned, which let's get into that. So basically, large number of freelancers being used. The reason why
we stay winning, we stay bald is a fucked up thing to say. Have some fucking respect for my man Joe. I personally think that the bald and the beard looks great.
Why this is being done, and I'm going to simplify this a lot, okay? But production, demands and deadlines and everything is getting increasingly more strict as time goes on, and that's why a large number of freelancers are brought in to be able to, finish a project in time, enough time to be able to get it out when it's actually designated to come out. Basically, think of how a game is. Like, for instance, when a game's date is set to come out, let's say, like, in March or whatever, then obviously it needs to come out. If they don't, it's going to cost the company a lot of money, it's going to be a lot of issues, big headaches, so they'll try to get as many people on board to be able to finish it before it comes out. And so in this case, that's what happens. A lot of freelancers are being brought in, not just to make up for the animator shortage, but also because production demands are just so high that they have to bring them in regardless, because they need to get that done before they could get to the next project.
How many times have you seen like really shitty episodes of an anime that you watch where you can noticeably different that the quality is kind of bad, something is off, then you look at the credits and it's just like the credit list is way longer. Remember those production value videos that we watch and how an entire fucking credit scene that has all these different animation directors, all these different companies working on, at a first glance, if you're not like used to understanding what happens in the industry, you might think like, oh wow, there's so many talented people working on this. Great. But no, that's actually a bad thing. That's a bad sign. That's a symptom right there, right? Yeah, 20-second key animators, right? Like that means that there was such a shitty fucking schedule that the original team working on this couldn't fucking do it. And now they have to bring in so many other people to get involved. And that causes bad anime to be made. No longer is there a shared vision in mind for one person to have an oversight, one animation director to go over and cleanly do that shit, right? Now you have like 40 other dudes all fucking scrambling around to try to fucking get the episode out in time.
So basically, these freelancers that are brought in, they're not staff that's going to stick around for a long period of time. They're going to be there for maybe an episode.
Zenshu's staff list is now cursed. Zenshu, again, the MAPPA anime, right? Like, it looks great, but like, yeah, I'm not surprised.
To maybe just that anime season, and then they're going to move on to a next project and never work with that company ever again to ever learn from the staff or anything. So you can see the fundamental issues that because of the large amount of freelancers and stuff, there is a lack of mentorship, of people being able to learn, and long-term investment within animators that stick at a company.
And again, the negative perspective I gave you about the knowledge transfer to basically get rid of those, talented people so you can just pay less and have like people that's more competent in the baseline. That is definitely one angle, but everything that Chibi just said, acknowledged, right? Like for sure, people aren't retaining the knowledge enough. There is this system, this framework where you don't have a long-lasting, relationship building. You just have people just jumping from one thing to another, and the baseline talent is not growing because of that.
So continuing to read. These corrections are an important part of development, aka they're talking about retakes here. Important part of development. Without them, animators move on to the next work with a major title under their CV despite errors and not understanding how they could have improved. So it's
honestly, this low-key is also how it works like in the tech industry too. Where like, basically the meta is you don't want to stay at one company. You don't want to stay there to learn the one technology as long as you can. You want to collect badges. You want to go to one reputable company, work for 1 to 2 years, just pad your resume, right? That's what they're doing too, right? They're padding resume. They got new major titles under CV. It's like, hey, I worked on Chainsaw Man. Hey, I worked on Freerun. Hey, I worked on all these different things, but are you actually getting better? Right? And in the corporate tech industry too, that's kind of the meta where you work on, hey, I work for Google, I work for Amazon, I work for this and that. It looks all nice, but are you actually a great software engineer? I don't know. Do you just know how to game the system maybe? More likely.
It's literally what I just talked about. Spreading the problem further in later productions. Animation director Terumi, Jujutsu Kaisen 0, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Diamond is Unbreakable, and Penguin Drum warned that these retakes would cause effects like anime budgets intended for 3 years growing to 5, aka, pushing the problem, making it a lot worse than it already is. But the budget, and this is a quote from them, but the budget will be used up on works, and I think there will be an increase in bankruptcies.
What's with this emoji that he provided? Why did the VP have a little laughing tongue out emoji in the article? But the budget will be used up on other works. Hee hee. And I think there will be an increase in bankruptcy. Okay.
How many animators will be able to survive at that time? The ones who are careless will be the ones who are laid off. Let's all study.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how it works, right? Competition, right? The best of the best. Like, this is like kind of like saying like, hey, you youngsters better get your shit together. Stop jumping from one thing to another, but rather get your shit good so that like when the calling game starts, not Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, but the actual fucking calling games in the real life, like who do you think is going to get replaced?
She said in a post from 2024, which is directly this post, as you can see. In the future, each company's capacity will be completely capped. It is expected that production will be reduced. Work scheduled for 3 years from now will be completed in 5, but the budget will be used up on other works. And I
emoji.
think there will be an increase in bankruptcies. How many animators will be able to survive at that time? The one who are careless will be the ones who laid off. Let's all study. So I think more or less what is being said here is that, if the companies don't turn around and they don't manage their production costs, they don't try to have people properly on staff, it's going to cause bankruptcies. But on top of that, it seems like this comment more or less is being said, these animators that you're going to be getting laid off, etc.
Basically, it's like a call to action of like, hey, all you people who are repeating this thing where you're not really learning and you're just constantly jumping from one thing to another, you need to get your shit together, right? Let's all study. Let's all get better. That's kind of like the thing that she is saying.
It's more or less their fault. That's what it seems like is being said here. Is that, oh yeah, it's your fault. You got with a company and all that isn't able to manage their time and all that. Oh, too bad. It's your fault.
I think that this is a pretty nuanced take where there is some partial truth here being said, but does it not feel like you're blaming the players rather than blaming the game? Like going back to the example I made in the corporate world that I'm familiar with a bunch of software engineers jumping from one company to another, not really learning, not really consolidating any knowledge, but basically gaming the system. You can never blame the players. You can never blame the people who's gaming the system. Because you got to ask yourself, why are they gaming the system? Because of the rules made. Who made the rules? Who made this game? Who made it such that this animation industry is so predatory that it's became like this? Rather than blaming the very bottom of the barrel in the corporate structure, right, the poor workers, why not look up and ask, why is the budget, like, who's profiting all this shit? Where is the money really all going? Why do we have such an unsustainable system where people are incentivized to basically game the system? You know what I mean? So, like, I don't think the fault really lies on one side or the other, but this kind of comment seems very snarky and kind of like, blames more of like, hey, you're basically hating on the player, but you should be really asking, like, the system needs to change. Like, fundamentally, the rules need to change so that people are incentivized not to do this behavior.
That's what it seems like here. It kind of feels a little bit jaded the way this is said here. So
I mean, shit, of course. I look at the emoji, right? This emoji alone is she's look at it. I mean, to me, this feels like, again, no, I don't want to throw shade or disrespect to this person, but this tweet was made by Nishi, right? That animation director. Clearly, she is a very talented person who is very, very high up at the totem pole, right? So it's kind of easy for the person who is safe, who is very talented, who doesn't have to suffer, the shitty system as much as the people on the bottom, to kind of like preach from the ivory tower looking down.
I don't know how to feel about that. Maybe I'm reading a little bit too deep into this one as well, but this kind of feels really negative towards...
No. I agree with Chibi here. 100% this does intentionally feel negative.
Animator saying, aha, you deserve to be laid off because you, you were careless.
Exactly.
Like you're overworking yourself in the trenches. It's just, doesn't sound like a good...
Exactly. You're victim blaming right now.
Comment. Anyways, MAPPA's past production troubles have led to it often being at the center of anime industry criticism. talked about that. These particularly intensified during the production of JJK Season 2, spawning fan criticism for unfinished episodes and even its freelancers rallying against the company while the series aired. Talked about that when that happened. Hasegawa explores other topics in the interview, such as the pros and cons of original series versus adaptations, the selection of Konosuke and Makoto as Rama and one-half director, and Oblivion Battery director, respectively, and how Vinland Saga director Shuhei pitched the series to MAPPA, which it ultimately took on with a largely same staff. Which studio didn't have the capacity for it, and Yabuta's team had already begun work on Season 2. Multiple Wit Studio titles were handed over around that period, such as Attack on Titan to MAPPA and The Ancient Magus Bride to Studio Kafka.
Okay.
MAPPA also touched on various business streams and advantage it has over many other studios. This includes merchandising, event planning, distribution, and advertising, which provide many opportunities in the company. If you have something you want to create and persuasion enough to attract people, you can aim for production desk or produce roles even if you're new to the company, Hasegawa said.
Okay.
So, what did we learn from this article?
We learned that we're cooked. With the way that the current, meta is in the industry, things are going to get worse and worse. More studios are going to become bankrupt. And their solution is knowledge transfer. To stop having people jump from one project to another where they become less and less skilled at the bottom. And then that causes, delays and more problems happening. We need to change something entirely. I don't think anything's really going to change until more studios become bankrupt. It's really hard to enact like an entire fucking like systemic change until you hit rock bottom.
Well, if there's one takeaway from it, it seems like MAPPA is aware of the issues of the balance between work life and personal life.
That's great.
They're aware of the freelancer issues that a lot of freelancers are being
I mean, I'm sure they've always been aware. They just never wanted to address it and say it out loud.
Brought in to be able to maintain a deadline and production schedule, even though that shouldn't be a thing. It's because they're making too much at once. They need to slow down. It's very clear that they are aware of issues, but from the way Hasegawa kind of comments on this, unless there's something missing out from this actual original article, more or less it seems like they're aware of the issues, but they're not really doing too much about it. They're more or less just saying, yeah, we acknowledge it, but we choose not to do anything. Now, I could be wrong here, but that's kind of what it looks like.
I agree.
Which is not a good look. It's not, but, I mean, they did say they're trying to mentor people and stuff. They're trying to do stuff like that, so hopefully that pans through and they do try that. But I do think that overall, this more or less is a article that, it says, yeah, we're aware, but we're not doing anything right now.
I think that it's a really simple answer. It's a really simple solution. But it's never going to happen. Here's my take. Follow the money. Why is there a shortage in the animators industry? Think about this for a second. Where's all the money going? It's at the very top, right? Like, these animators who actually do all the fucking work are not incentivized to join in the industry because they get paid nothing. The producers, the production committee, the sponsors, right? The people at the very top who do everything but work, who kind of like start the project, they're the ones profiting. And like, I don't have the like statistics. I don't have the numbers to back it up. But usually what happens in any type of corporate structure is the fucking suits take all the money and the scraps are given to the employees, the workers that actually do the work. Don't you think that rather than blaming the fucking workers, you should create an environment, hey, let's fucking audit the amount of people making the most money at the fucking top and distribute it in such a way that people want to join the industry? Distribute it in such a way that there is not going to be an animation shortage. Instead, like literally the simplest answer is pay people fucking better. Like this happens in any industry too. Like for teachers as well. There's a shortage in teachers because teachers get treated like shit. They don't get paid anything. Pay them more. Nurses, same thing. Like, and it's not as if the money just shows up out of nowhere. We're not saying like just fabricate money to just inject. No. Clearly there is a ridiculous difference in the way that the animators are getting paid and the fucking production staff and the committees are getting paid. And if you're able to redistribute it in a way that makes sense, I think that this will be way more impactful than any sort of knowledge transfer or blaming the fucking animators would be. But that's just me. What the fuck do I know?
Right now. So yeah, I just want to bring this up. It's very interesting, to get some behind the scenes info for the vice president of MAPPA, see what they have to say. But we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. May all of you
KyoAni already does it. And yeah, I wonder why KyoAni has such a healthy you know, work-life balance in a company, right? I wonder why the specific company that is practicing the beliefs that I'm preaching right now is doing the best in terms of that. I don't know, just might be a coincidence, right? Please go check out Chibi's channel. Here's the link to the video. Give that video a like, subscribe to his channel if you want, and I will see you next time.